before we start, it would be also nice to shortly get to know our guest of the discussion. So I will hand Maria the pointer to you. Just to briefly also introduce our guests. So we will start from Maria. Maria is interdisciplinary artist and education activities facilitator. She's working between Scotland and Vilnius, or Lithuania. She's been recently residing in Kaunas, where she also had activities with children. But the reason we invited her is also because she has a project together with her colleague called BRUT Collective, and maybe you could tell us more about it.
Sure. How does this work? So, okay. I will start from this personal image. It's actually quite stressful to give a short presentation after all this achievements of the architecture school. It's like I've got 5 slides with random things. But so here is myself and my besties sort of sitting in this shed and playing cards. And it's quite a significant image because for BRUT Collective, that what Martina said, myself and my colleague Anna Tudos, we instigated this collective in Glasgow in 2018. And this kind of image was sort of key in how we started working. And it's quite important because, it's like, seems there's nothing really much happening. There's this kind of basic sort of metal and wood structure. But for myself, it was where actually most of the things happened. And the structure was both kind of exercising sort of space. There was play space. There was space during the mornings for elderly people to gather and discuss the gossip. And, it was a kind of key center for the high-rise community to gather in. And in a way, with the BRUT Collective, what we're doing through our kind of art and architecture and social engagement project, we were trying to kind of replicate this quite a simple structure, how these simple structures sort of function in community environments. And we particularly work with sort of high-rise communities, so like high-rise districts, both in Glasgow and, in Scotland and Lithuania, and we work in Berlin and Budapest as well. And then, next one is, so our kind of, it's just the key sort of things that I selected here to be quick, but it's like quite a few things. We decided to work on a book that was called BRUT Boredom, High-Rise Emptiness and Play, and it kind of, discusses this idea of emptiness that was kind of present in that shed shelter kind of thing. And also boredom, that was also very essential in terms of creativity. Boredom was something that, in a sense, not to like fetishize it, but in a sense, it was creating a sense of a space for imagination to evolve. So in this book, we had myself, Anna, Hussein Mitha, Edward Hollis, and a few star writers such as Owen Hatherley and Chris Leslie, sort of writing about different environments that instigate play, that also both neglected, but also offering that space of reappropriation, I guess. And one of my inspirations for this book, for the text in this book, was the slide in Kaunas in my grandma's kind of high-rise yard, which I used to slide on, but as you can see, it's in a bush now, and it sort of appears in winter, disappears in summer, and it's sort of like reflected in a way what I thought is happening with a lot of play spaces and kind of this former Soviet sort of buildings and playgrounds that existed there. Instead of being renovated, they actually kind of being neglected and or replaced nearby with playgrounds that sort of, fulfill the quota of redevelopment projects. So following that, we had the presentations of this book, which was also kind of created quite in a playful manner to be accessible both to children and adults, and also it was either very cheap or free for people in the communities And we had 4 launches in Kaunas, Berlin, Glasgow, and Budapest. And here is a launch in Glasgow, where we worked with Links organization, where I also worked as like youth worker. And the idea was to for kids to print one of the graphics in the book, which was based on the kind of high-rise environment and also the playgrounds there, for them to make T-shirts in a way for them to be empowered by their own environment where they live. So basically, because a lot of these high-rise buildings are surrounded by stigma and quite a few negative connotations, both in Lithuania and in Scotland, we wanted for them to encourage them to be proud of where they live and kind of, advocate for their own environment, urban environment. And back to the shed. Here was the project we did in Berlin, invited by NGBK, and to work in Hellersdorf, micro-district, which recently seen a lot of public cuts, as well as other kind of, environments, urban environments as such as seeing. And here was the billboard that was inspired by the shed sort of structure, which was a join the dots kind of idea for the kids to play, but also this kind of additional structure for adults to sit. So it's kind of both adults and kids could have a form of engagement in this kind of derelict yard where there was nothing but grass. So here's being used at the top by a family or whatever they are. And this is something that the latest project that we did was last summer in Glasgow. It was called Summer Non-School, and our latest focus was actually to engage both sports and architecture and arts, especially sports and arts as a kind of 2 disciplines that are often left at the periphery in traditional educational system, and encourage kids for, it was kind of 2 weeks, 5 hours a day intensive school where they were encouraged to build their own stadium/playground, but it all resulted as an obstacle course where they just build this, this Stone Age looking basketball court kind of thing, which was created entirely by themselves. And our idea was to interfere as little as possible, but to give them guidance and a framework where they could work, but in a way, like, give them total self-governance about what they're going to do. So yeah, that was it.
Thanks.
Hopefully fit within 5 minutes, or a little bit.
You work with. Okay, thanks, Maria. Maybe, you can pass it to the Živilė, because we have this preset order. Yeah. Welcome. Okay, so shortly, Živilė Etevičiūtė is our next presenter, and the reason we decided to invite her is because she's coming actually from cultural fields. She graduated from curatorial studies, literature, and then been working in the cultural diplomacy. She was cultural attaché in Nordic countries, so she also knows the regional context. But most recently, she also joined the Millennium Schools program, and she's now been working there for about a year. So maybe you could also present us what is this project and what is the future of it.
Yeah, thank you. Before my diplomacy career, I worked more than 10 years in a culture field in a very different position. So I would say that this is where I would like to kind of identify myself with. And today the program, and I'm kind of feel a bit that I'm standing out here, but at the same time I'm very much in tune because I'm already having many ideas how to I can employ the knowledge I'm getting here. So the program, I try to be as short as possible. It's a program which initiated by the Ministry of Education, Sciences and Sports, and it's a two-year program for schools in Lithuania for all municipalities. So it's not a contest, and the idea is that for schools it's financial support and consultancy as concerns content, to try out new method, new algorithms, new ways of dealing with different ways of education, let's put it like this, new cooperations and so on. So it's kind of a playground, kind of a pilot project, kind of testing possibility to try out something new. And yeah, so the main target, the main goal is to eliminate the achievement gap between schools in Lithuania, and yeah, also the vision you have here, very nice goals, and you see the reach here. So it's almost all municipalities in Lithuania, and yeah, how it works. So there's a body of Millennium Schools Academy, which I'm part of, and when we work with a municipal level, and then municipalities, of course, we work tightly with schools. And there are 4 areas of school performance improvement, and it's very important, and I highlighted here cultural education and STEAM. I guess you are acquainted with the term, and because Martina's question was how we can put architecture here in this program, how it could work. So I see that, of course, through the cultural education for sure, but also STEAM is, I think, the best kind of way here to employ architecture. And although it's usually seen like quite narrow, but there are a lot of efforts put also from my side and colleagues of mine that STEAM and architecture, it's really, this art could go not for arts, but for architecture, like to make first steps here, yeah. And 2 other areas, inclusive education, which is horizontal priority, and leadership in action also. Yeah, and I will not talk more about STEAM education. I guess you are acquainted with the term, but a little bit here. And yeah, and 5 main investments areas within the program. So you can see the main focus actually are in so-called soft activities. So teachers are the main focus. So to teach teachers, yeah. So they could be this multipliers here. And I'm happy there are some teachers here in this group. So it's a good start. And like infrastructure and equipment is seen more like a tool to reach the goal. And here it's a challenging part, but also it's a special program here. So we learning a lot how to focus from tools to the goals, yeah? How to use tools as a tool to reach goal and not to put it as a goal itself. So this is also kind of challenging. Yeah, so short, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we will wrap up our presentations with Rokas. Rokas Kilčiauskas is an architect and education project curator. Rokas is also, he established with his colleagues Process Office Studio, and now he's also teaching in Vilnius Art Academy and leading interior design department. And there they also were coordinating the project called Aikštelėje, which is like one of the main projects that was dedicated to the infrastructure of modernist heritage renewal for retrofitting for the contemporary needs in education. So concerning the kindergartens, the schools, and the environment. And Rokas, you mentioned that the project is over, so it's also a good time to look a bit in the past. But of course, there's a lot of new projects coming up as you gained some knowledge. So we would like to hear also a little bit about that project.
Okay, thank you. Actually, when Martynas called, I thought that it would be super easy to show the project, which is somehow done. But when I sit and try to do it to fit in 5 minutes, actually, it's totally impossible. But I will try to jump just rapidly. For non-Lithuanian speakers, That word aikštelė in Lithuanian language is used in several meanings. So we choose this word because it is used when we are talking about the playground and when we are talking about the construction site. We use the same word. So this similarity looked for us quite well. Why? At that time, it was 2014, actually, the Ministry of Education, Science, and it was without the sport at that time. Yeah, so they came with the question, what to do. We are struggling with education, special environments, adoption, contemporary education needs. There are changing paradigm, but what we do, we're making rules, we are organizing EU funding, but after the periods, we are visiting sites, we are visiting schools, kindergartens, and nothing happens. None of the goals are achieved. So, of course, it was a long discussion. We as an architects, actually they came to our university, to Vilnius Art Academy, and I said, why don't you choose architectural competition way? It's the easiest way how to reach it. Then we were talking a bit more about other variation, but they said, no, we need something that will give us results in a shorter time. Yeah, it was the situation we visited. It's kindergarten situation. Actually, it's 2014. I know, I hope, I believe that a lot of things changed, but still, this is our schools, and you can see that from the outside, they look more or less good, let's say, yeah, according to that time when it was built. But if you are entering inside, you see what you see. You have what you have. And actually, it was a problem. It's still a problem in Lithuania that all the investment into this type of buildings infrastructure was dedicated to sustainability, how it is called. But mostly it's about insulating facades and changing windows. But nothing actually, mostly nothing happened inside. So, and what we constructed, what concept we have constructed, actually it's, from today's point of view, it's nothing new for me, but at that point it was, wow, very, very interesting. So, the idea was, after researching the situation, why it doesn't happen, why they don't reach their goals, so through participation. And participants was okay. We joined our forces with ministry. We constructed concept. We said that we will create. We will give our young perspective heads, like students, professors, and then we invited professional officers to join. And then, of course, it's kindergarten, schools, municipalities, educators, psychologists, politics, etc. It's a very huge society. And we selected 5 different, the most popular different architectural type kindergartens, then 7, actually 5 different types, but 7 schools. And we started with discussions, presentations. We've invited colleagues from Western Europe. Actually, Estonians were here. They showed their achievements in that field, and also educators. The next step was to go to the sites and start working. It was actually very, very interesting experience when children gave us their understanding of space with some rules like stickers, which is what space is good or what environment is good, what is bad. The next step was the workshop. It means that I call it like a task for architects, like a text to translate to architectural language. We did almost the same with the teachers, with the staff, with parents, with the people from surroundings. And of course we've got these, we made these architectural results like a projects. I can probably mention the main problems which are known for all of us. It's lack of multifunctional spaces, the space where children can act together, where can meet each other, the use of space only for a few hours per day and nothing, and mostly useless, and surroundings and connection between inside and outside. So finally, what is the outcome? In a very, very short text, it's according to the kindergarten's part, it was very strict regulations on architecture and design solutions for those who wants to gain funding. So at that period, at that funding period for 5 or maybe 6 years, it was 20 kindergartens renovated. According to the schools, it was a little bit different rules. They invented light recommendations on the same topic, architectural and design solution for those who want to gain funding. And also they let us realize 7 prototypical spaces in these 7 schools. So it means that they gave some funding. And this is the outcome. This is the result. Okay, it's not our language, it's not architectural language, but this is, I think it shows somehow, I can't say a problem, but the issue, why probably in this case we are not achieving the results we are imagining. So this is the language of bureaucratic life, and I can somehow blame that situation, that it's not monitored, it's not shown, it's not, let's say, not only ministry, we also as an architect, sometimes we are not enough proud of what we have done. But we can feel contributed to. And there are only few examples. There are 2 architectural teams which were participating in that period, and now we have a result. So it's architectural office in Bloom who made Biblioteca. Well, they gained awards for that. It's a library in school. The hottest knew that they won the competition in Vilnius municipality for the newest kindergarten. I can say that the rules for that competition was also more or less based on Aikštelė project things, and all of our locals already know that this autumn was the opening, the historic moment, the opening of a new school in Vilnius. It's at Pilaitės Gymnasija, and it was made by 2 architects and also won by competition on which rules I was working. And yeah, it was totally made by outcomes of Aikštelė project. And the last made by 2 architects, it's also like the part of that Aikštelė project. It's one of the kindergartens which choose to act by these rules and gain money, and so this is the result. So sorry, it's for sure not 5 minutes, but the last slide, we can count on architecture.
Thank you, Rokas. Yep. Round of applause. And honestly, this discussion isn't meant to be like among us. I know there is also people from In Bloom, do architects. So if you want to also share your take on this, go ahead. We could also give a mic to you if you want to raise a question, anyone, or to give your perspective on something. We will be missing out if you see it. Okay, so we really kind of gathered a lot of interesting activities, and people are working on very different scales, like from very strategic, even kind of bureaucratics, trying to formulate the frameworks of where we then build our environments or the education process, to very hands-on activities that really make the education process. But I wanted to begin our discussion from very personal memory. Maybe you can shortly remember what sort of the most vital moment where you were joyful, but also you realized that you kind of gained something new, some knowledge. What was the activity and the surroundings you were in? Just to kind of sparkle this positivity, then we can dive into problems. Živilė?
Okay, yeah, I was probably 10 or something, and we were changing pipes in all our district, and to change these pipes of water or whatever, we had to dig like trenches over there, and we're pretty long, so it could take, till 10 to 15 minutes to go through, and we were not protected. So as I remember, for a kid, it was so cool, because when you jump in, almost all of your height is in this hole, and you can go and explore your environment, which we spent all of the time, not at the TV, but outside, spent through these trenches. So that was such a joyful thing to experience, and it's kind of in tune talking about architecture, because it's also kind of experience the space in a different way. So I know in the context of war, it's maybe doesn't sound so joyful, but this change of pipelines, and probably it was super unsafe, I guess now, but this experience was super cool. So I guess probably you do in school something like this with kids, like having a possibility for them to experience space in a different way, not a usual one.
Yes, I agree with this one. More precisely, maybe in these hut building workshops, where they are allowed to use those drills and saws themselves. And sometimes we look this from the corner of eye, and we're like really hoping that they won't kill themselves. But I think it's a really nice experience for them to be allowed to, like, they have this trust from grown-ups that they can use those tools that are usually they're considered not to be able to use. And that's why the hut building camps are super popular, mostly among young boys. I think it's one of the top 3 camps among young boys, but also girls are enjoying it.
I will follow up both from you two, from Rokas and Živilė. Yes, I think like actually seeing the photographs of schools and kindergartens, I feel like they still give me the nauseous feeling of very restricted and kind of quite unpleasant educational systems in both, I guess, everything from design to architecture to teachings that was happening in the school. But the photograph that I showed before of that shed and the kind of communal yards of the high-rise districts where I grew up were the kind of in a sense, the educational places for me, because it was like what you were saying, almost like trenches, or we had a river next to it. And I mean, in the context of now, probably would be quite dangerous, but not having that certain governance and kind of having the freedom of play and having certain natural and kind of an architecture and some certain ruins as well to engage with. It was something that was kind of educating my imagination, I think, and kind of also giving a sense of perception of space as well, and how the space is kind of, you know, growing with the community and changing and things like that.
I will not be very original according to other answers. So all of you probably can imagine the kindergarten, this type, Sovietic, yeah? And that's strange that once again I am going outside. I will talk not about the inside. And most of the kindergartens were fenced with fence and with bushes. So these bushes were the best place, things, design, I don't know, creations, what I can remember. Because you can separate alone, you can work with group. Yeah, it's, so yeah, the bushes.
I thought, because when Živilė shared, I thought like yours will also going to be somewhere in the grounds, in the construction areas. But yeah, it's interesting. It's in the bushes.
I meant that nothing very original, according that somehow it's architecture as a topic, but we are talking about the outside. I mean, the places without architecture, as it's understood originally.
Piret.
Yes, I remember when I climbing on trees, because this is a little bit dangerous. You must think about, not think, but feel and do that you don't fall, that gravity is not a friend of yours. And also you can do there on the trees these conversations, group works, and how the small people are there, and imagine stuff also. And I think it's very multiplicity situation.
As expected for me also, it wasn't like sitting behind the desk. I would mention this EASA event in this place. Maybe many of you have participated or heard about this European Architecture Students' Assembly. And I remember the most hard but also joyful or nostalgically looked, it is joyful. But we organized this event in Estonia, and we had this idea that we want to have a festival on one day. And so we were checking just like Google Maps, and we chose one random field and decided like we will have a festival there in 2 weeks or something, and how to prepare all this space, starting from cutting this all that was growing there, and then discovering that it's not able to ride a car to this place and so on. So it was constant problem solving, and it demanded lots of creativity in the best ways. So it was a thing that we remember, and as a really great place that we learned a lot, but in a joyful way.
Yeah, that's. I also agree. I mean, when I was thinking that the summer school format for me was also like in the most recent times really one of the most joyful thing, where you kind of learn from your peers, and there is no kind of hierarchy who's kind of the teacher you have to listen, but rather the tutors who share with you, and you together explore while doing things. But it seems like we are all here somehow inspired not by these educational, kind of formal educational methods, but rather exploring and learning outside the institutions. And of course, it's natural. In the 70s, there was this even movement of deschooling the society, because there was really kind of schools were seen as these learning factories. But now there is this new trend to go beyond the school and really to implement learning in the cities. We even have these terms of like creative education, and I want to kind of a bit focus right now here on the formal education, because it's also part of our even laws. Like you have to, if you want to be a citizen, you have to learn until 16 years in the school. So we kind of all go through this, but how it changes, because on the one hand we have the infrastructure that is coming from these 60s, 70s, 80s mostly, but slightly now new things are appearing as well. And then we have also education system that is kind of also has a lot of inherited from the last 50, 100 years. So it's not that old, but on the other side also the times are changing. So it would be interesting maybe also to observe how do you see the formal educational system in Estonia. What are the problems you are facing? What are the ways you're moving, and how you also position your activities within this direction of educational system?
So in Estonia, I think it all applies to Estonia that you were mentioning. We see that the tendency or the trend or the direction is to form more self-organized pupils, so that there won't be such big accountability on teachers and somebody telling you what to do, but to be able to really self-organize yourself. Also the formal and non-formal education, like the non-formal education is more strongly blending into the formal education, but still there are like the things you have to learn by the curriculum, and this shows quite well outcomes in the PISA test, for example. But when we measure the happiness of the children, then it's not so happy, the outcome. So it's there's still lots to better, and we're moving in this direction to give more of the decision making to the children, and not that they wouldn't feel they are forced to study something and to do only the right things, but to give them this chance for trying out and experimenting and having some trial and error. But it's moving this direction, but slowly and steadily.
Yes, because we have problem also with teachers, because a lot of teachers are, I think, after 3 years so old that they don't want to teach more, and we have not enough young teachers, and this is, I hope it's not collapse, but but this is a very big problem, and then all that what Karolin says is a direction where we want to go, but how?
And from your presentation, I understood that this latest project, the school space, is really focusing on how to kind of get inside a formal education and change something. And, but your other activities, are they also somehow working with the teachers and the let's say formal education, or you work more kind of outside the school time, like after school?
Like the regular activities of our school is we're operating as a hobby school, but we have this elective course for high schools, architecture and living environment, and we also train teachers who will provide this class to children so they will have a training before, and the architecture school teachers are helping in the training. And also children that are taking part in the hobby school, like the upper level, starting from 15 years old, children, they can use the participation in the hobby school as a, get some points in their regular curriculum from that. But yes, this school space project, this is aimed for regular schools children, and our aim is to teach architecture, but we do it in a maybe more creative way. We have this ability to decide ourselves how we teach it. We don't have this state telling us that they have to know this by the end of the course, but we can make it make the process enjoyable, or we're hoping to make it enjoyable.
All right, we will also talk more about the teachers or educators in general, but also it would be interesting to hear maybe Živilė from your point of view. I don't also want to ask about Lithuania now, but we were also talking about the Nordics because this few times mentioned PISA also is like GDP is for economics, PISA is for education, and every time we hear in the news that we have terrible results. Look, the Finland, the Nordics.
This news.
Yeah. So, but you also said that within the Nordics there are a lot of differences, and maybe you can also share how you see what are these kind of traditions in the societies, how they're basing their educational system, and are they kind of sacrificing the joyfulness for the good results, or they kind of manage to keep the balance?
Yeah, I can answer all the questions. Yeah, although I'm not an expert. Yeah, there is no research I have at hand. But I lived 3 years in Sweden, and I was also traveling back and forward to Denmark and Finland. So I've heard people talking. Yeah, people who kids are going to schools and so on. And I would like also others who know probably more or have the experiences to join the talk. But I've heard from some friends in Sweden that, you know, in Sweden we like all new things and we're switching between them too quickly. That's why we don't have this background, this base, you know. And when I sit in Finland, we are more not changing the background, but changing what's around. And probably this is the way how to deal with it. So you're not starting from scratch all the time. You're keeping what's good and changing what's bad. But this is my very amateurish, opinion, because I worked as a cultural, not educational attaché. But in general, talking about creativity and so on, creativity per se is not guaranteeing a value in all societies, and not a guarantee for all the, educational or other activities. It's also important to understand. So I also experienced a lot that creativity per se, for example, in such a country as Sweden, is not a top priority. You know, there are other things. So it just also it's very interesting to get to know it, because when you have a bigger view, you understand that there is no one answer for all the problems. So you know, it's also important. So before changing something, it's really good to diagnose, yeah, to understand what's good, what's bad, and only then to try new tools. So it's a bit broad and probably a bit philosophical understanding, yeah. But as concerns Lithuanian part, what's happening right now, the good thing is that the new new core curricula is coming, new programs in schools. So now they are starting to pop up in schools. In 2024, all the subjects will be there with new programs, and there's a 30% of the time that teachers can decide what we want to do with this timing. So it's also part of this core curricula. They have to implement it, but how they do it, they decide. And here, of course, this program I talked about, it's very much in tune, because it gives this financial and consulting content kind of consulting to try out things. Then afterwards, what works, you can adjust your, how to say, regular educational life. So I guess that's very good news that we have these two things in tune. And then, of course, formal education. Because, if you have figures, the average 60% of kids attending extracurriculum. And it depends largely on parents. But not all parents are ready to give us opportunities for kids. So the role of a school is getting much more important. Yeah. So the focus is that all kids who are attending school, as you said, compulsory until 16, could experience the same activities as kids who can do it after school. So I think it's also a good shift, like all the school and other forms, they are encouraged, and especially in parts which have a difficulties with social and economical background. So, yeah. And I agree with the challenges are similar, of course.
Yeah, and how it also looks, because in Lithuania we also have this the difference between the central cities that gain more attention and investment, and then there is kind of depopulation in the periphery. But also, what is the educational situation? What are the kind of main challenges you see? Because also the part of your project is to see the landscape of the whole Lithuania, the educational landscape, I mean.
Yeah. The challenge is the news, as you mentioned. If we would have more positive news on our news, I think that would give a better results for us. Because actually, of course, the accessibility of cultural institutions and so on, of course, it's better in bigger cities. But if we talk about other things, measure happiness or creativity and so on, it's not Vilnius or Kaunas or Klaipėda the ones who are leading always. So you can go really, and here are people who like keliaujančios architektūros dirbtuvės and other practitioners, I think we can also tell much more. It's such a joy. So it's so good to go outside Vilnius. I'm from Vilnius myself. So it's so good to go to other places and to meet all these people, super creative, super cool, living many kilometers from Vilnius and being much more energized, and not just energized, but implementing things. Without national institutions, without big funding, just with finding their ways. So it's really different map. I know it's kind of easy answer, but it's different. But I think it's also a good answer. So not necessarily it's somehow connected to cities, and there are different challenges. So in Vilnius there are too little schools, too many kids, and so on. And in other places maybe the challenges, the problems are different. So yeah.
Yeah, and also if keliaujančios architektūros dirbtuvės, I would like to also add, but being a volunteer for also a few times, I also experienced that somehow the importance of the school in the villages or in the smaller towns is much more important for the community. It's actually it's becoming partially like a community center, let's say, because they don't have so many facilities and so many activities. So the school also becomes a kind of area to meet the others. Jumping from this, it's also interesting, maybe from the infrastructural point of view, how we deal with the contemporary educational needs, and having all these kind of old infrastructures, how we adapt them. What do you, Rokas, how do you see? I mean, we saw some images you were showing that interior is usually forgotten. Yeah. But really, maybe you can share.
Actually, interior is not forgotten, but it's not treated as a part of renovation in general. But okay, I just remembered one moment during that project. A few moments I will tell. One from kindergarten part, another from schools part. From kindergartens, when I totally agree with Živilė. There are, according these differences between big towns. It's not only Vilnius, it's Vilnius, Kaunas, Klaipėda, it's almost the same, and then we are taking some smaller places, different needs. But I can't remember exact small town and its kindergarten, but whatever, it's small, and it was just the beginning of the project. We came and we were introducing what we are going to do, what we are going to achieve, and after that, informal talking, and the guy, aged about 60, he is coming to me with a huge smile and saying, I never believed that architects works with kindergartens. My reaction was, what? And what I imagined, he said, well, they are making projects and building houses, private houses, living. They are building banks, offices, museums, but no, not kindergartens. I said, why? Why you think so? He said, because during the last time, as he remembers, as he works in this kindergarten, he never sees an architect. Yes, he sees constructors, etc., etc. So I think it shows somehow. Of course, now it's everything changes. Yeah, and the next from the school project, it was situation not at the beginning, but at the middle. When architects came back with their translated translations, like I told, yeah, the translation of teachers, of children, of parents into these architectural forms, and it was a moment to decide which part of the project select to implement as a topic. And according the previous material, the needs, it was very clear that we should reconstruct the space of classrooms as it is. It was the idea to make these more cluster type spaces, not casual classroom. And we were saying, okay, so can we fix it that we are going to do it? And then the teachers and the director said, whoa, no. And we said, why? You wanted that. Yeah, this is our... We are not ready. We are not ready because when you will implement it, you will build it after 2 years. We will not be ready to act by the rules we know, by the rules we understand, by the rules we need. So I don't know why is it so. Is it only one school? Or is it a tendency? So this is it. But answering more shortly to your question, I can say that this infrastructural part from, yeah, you were right, from which is in Lithuania something about 70% built from 50s to 90s. I can truly say that it has weak points, but it also has strong points. And if we are comparing state schools to private schools, for sure we have these new ones which are good, but if you are, for example, comparing the plot, the site, the possibilities of the site, if you are comparing the quantity of square meters per one student, so the potential of these elder type buildings is quite big. So, and that is only the question how to deal with it and what to do.
And you already mentioned the participation of, let's say, users of the space, the teachers, the administration of the schools. And in your slides, you mentioned like back 5 years ago, it was not very common. Now it's like participation as a tool of how you create something is, for us, it seems to be like understandable that it has to, like the users of the space have to be involved, but really, how is it happening with the modernization of the school buildings and the new ones? Like I saw some videos from the Pilaitė school, the workshop. So the children, the youth were kind of represented by some also pupils. But how is it happening with usually these modernization projects? Are children involved in this project? Like they're also thinking about their space and how they will.
If we are talking about these who are from Aikštelė project or those who are not reactions, but those who are working forward in that case, educational spaces, and for sure, it's a must stage of project making. But if we are talking about these ways of implementing reconstruction of educational spaces, which happens in Lithuania traditionally by these competition according the lowest price, yeah? These type of competitions, I think no. They are not involved. We insisted when we were talking with ministry that we took the German type. They have the 0 stage. In general, they have more than, in Lithuania, we have 3 typical stages of project making. In Germany, it's 6 or 7, something like that, and they have 0 stage. And 0 stage is this stage when the communities, it could be, if we are talking about kindergarten, so it's the children, if we are talking about the schools, so elder ones, and so on and so on, that they should be involved. I mean, they should participate. And I hope it's just a question of time when the system will understand what bonuses we are getting. And the main bonus is when we were working in Aikštelė project was that not to achieve the result which will be pushed out by the user at the beginning. That's the problem was that's the issue was that we were dealing. So, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, education and the way you do kind of learning is also very kind of dependent on the way you then will need a space, what kind of space you will need. But I will like to also ask how is it in Estonia if you have this project school space, is it more focused on pupils building something in their classroom, or is it going to be somehow involved in maybe later the architectural renovations of the schools?
Both, plus I would add like a really big goal is to make children at all notice their surroundings, so that they will have this first idea. We can ask for something more, or like demand a better room, because overall, I don't know if you remember when you were going to school, did you think about the room like, oh, there's not enough air, that's why my head is aching? Maybe you were just like, oh, school is not a great place to go and I don't like it, but actually the space is affecting our learning processes. 2 years ago, I was analyzing all the works that were submitted by the children who completed the school space project, and then also I was thinking like what is their input then, like what kind of school spaces do they want to, can we use this in projecting new schoolhouses? And if we read only what children want, like for example, they find that their schoolhouses are so dull and so plain, there's no color, they feel that they are tired, oh, let's add color, let's make all the walls crazy colorful, and still we need architect in the middle of this process, like who would translate this children's needs, that maybe they don't need everything to be colorful, maybe they need just more variety of different spaces. So it could be a really nice collaboration, and it would teach children that they can, their say is going to, what they have to say is going to actually change something in the world, and I think it's a really great thing to take to future with them after they graduate the school, that something that they think or have analyzed, it really has like results in the end, and they can make something better in cooperation with architects, for example. I think I had one thought more, but what was it? Maybe it will come a little later.
Yeah, but hearing the Rokas, could you also share how is it going? Yeah, maybe in general with new facilities or the retrofit of the existing.
Right now there is a direction that the high schools are separated from middle schools, and for this reason we need like a new huge high school buildings, and we're building like for the last 10 years I guess we have built more than 20 new high schools. So we have really applied those modern practices in the schoolhouses. Was it the question? Am I getting it correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You seem so shocked. We do have new schoolhouses, yes, but also renovation projects. But yeah, everybody is doing their best, of course. Maybe I'm not like a specialist to give out exact numbers or such, but also it's the topic of the square meters per pupil and how to optimize everything and how to optimize it financially and so on. But I think we have quite many really nice projects that yes, also the by the school that was seen in the video.
Yes, it was opened on the December last year.
It's really often that we have a new school opening. Also in Tallinn there's one in construction now, or at least one.
At least.
Yeah, because we're checking Estonian Architects Union website and they're announcing the competitions, and it's really at least one school competition per 2 months or even per month happens in Estonia, sorry, not in Lithuania.
Yes, not only high schools, also the middle schools. Middle schools are the not government but municipality. They own and they are clients, and this high schools there is a government client, and I go and visit with this film clips. I think 10 schools now, but I will more than 50, yes. And then comes, I think, 8 clips together. And I saw that the government is a better client because there is one institution what have 20 or more schools experience, but this municipality, they have their own like child, what they do, and the small municipalities, there is a personal stuff also, what they politicians must do, because they are politicians and they promise something, and then some middle schools are not so good like high schools.
All right, but maybe it's time to get outside of school into bushes and the grounds. And I would like to ask you, Maria, because you
Worked along bushes.
yeah, you saw some slides in the bushes. So and it's really beautiful that you kind of see the potential of play and learning in the areas. Usually people are not thinking that there is anything like the sleeping districts are still somehow seen in the popular opinion as kind of space you just want to get rid of, and yeah, you just come there to park your car and live in your apartment. But really, when working with a very specific location in the city, what are your main aspirations, and how you then, when also working with the kids, what are you trying to explore with them there?
I mean, I both worked at schools and outside of schools, but more for kind of, I guess, the BRUT collective. We sort of self-initiated projects that are based on like micro-district yards. But yeah, I think it's like one thing that is important to mention, that I see my practice, or kind of generally artistic practice or informal sort of education, more as patches for the gaps that exist in informal education. And unfortunately, it's something that I see that is necessary. Hopefully, at some point, we will not have to do that, or work in schools or collaborate with schools, which also is happening, I guess, more now frequently.
Can you share what were you doing in the formal education? You were also
yeah,
teaching?
Sure. In formal education, I both worked in. I mean, I don't really know that much of educational system in Lithuania. I only have like the memories of 20, 15 years ago, which quite, yeah. But yeah, I know kind of more of a UK educational system. But in Glasgow, I worked as a play worker with certain schools, again, like situated in areas that are kind of more economically deprived and facing a lot of public cuts. For example, there was discussion in the area where the local council only had money to either fix the road to the hospital or build like a basketball court, and they fixed the road to the hospital, but the kids didn't really have a place to play anything anywhere. So it's kind of showing the lack of not only kind of educational spaces, but also play spaces where kids could, I don't know, do out of school activity that is more fun and creative. And so at school we're doing various projects, from like hut building to kind of things like that, and it would function. The way it would work during a long break, so kids that are kind of wanting to join, we will set up our sort of like free play sort of environment, and kids would join, and we would be guiding adults rather than telling them what to do. And that was the premise of like my work in loads of formal education, to be an adult that kids could trust, but without the kind of formal guidance of a teacher, which is telling them what to do, rather than kind of trying to play with them. But yeah, outside of the formal education is something that we worked with kids to observe their own environment. There was something also, as an artist, if I'm asked to do some educational activities in like communities and stuff, what I learned throughout years, it's actually not to have goals, which is quite difficult within all the quotas and fundings and all these things. They have to achieve something, and you show that you achieved something, and it's actually, well, it's sort of pessimistic way, but nobody cares what happened in between. It's just like, as long as you show a picture of, I don't know, a cardboard bridge. But for me, it became really important to actually that slow growth and slow process and discussions and these like empty gaps of talk and moments of boredom and things like that. That's like through that, both the trust was evolving with the communities and kids that I was working, but also they learned to kind of, I guess, question their own environment. And in terms of my projects is to kind of, well, our projects, to work with the waste or ruins that were available in the areas and how to repurpose whatever is available. And I guess going back to the formal education and what the architecture school was saying, is like, you know, hopefully kids that learn how to navigate, understand or observe their own environment in where they live, they could perhaps, and be empowered to take a change in these places and, you know, be like, okay, this is our space as well. We can also have a say or whatever, build something in there. They could take that back to school and start questioning, you know, what is this room that we're sitting? Why doesn't it have colors? Maybe we could have colors. Maybe we could ask to have more colors. And it's just, yeah, learning to kind of to understand how they could change the spaces and the environment.
Yeah, because also going back to this sleeping districts, there is this kind of notion that from the spatial planning perspective, that there are no clear boundaries, so no one is having the ownership of their land. Therefore, there are no kind of interest in taking care of the space. And what do you see? Like, maybe we don't need to kind of build fences, but there are kind of different ways of how really foster this empowerment of the communities living in these areas through play or through some different methods.
Well, I guess to answer this question is, especially in Lithuania, with a lot of new developments or redevelopment projects, fences did become quite a popular addition to whatever environment that is, and I don't know whether it's safety reasons or trying to have this kind of secure neighborhood or whatever that is, and but I think it kind of goes back to, well, there's two ways perhaps. One is kind of more formal and bureaucratic, and it's like seeking for funding and kind of like trying to push your local sort of governments to create more community gathering spaces, and also again employ perhaps more creative people to initiate informal sort of ways to engage the community. But then it's also it's kind of encouraging the kids that live in the neighborhoods to kind of reappropriate the existing spaces and bushes, or I don't know. I must say there was a bush in my childhood that was quite significant gathering space. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, I also want to go maybe joining the formal education together with this wish to go outside of the school and to have some also educational activities in the areas that are usually not meant to be for children and youth education. And Živilė, maybe you can share this. Also, the creative education program aims to involve the different institutions. Am I right? To also be a spaces for education.
Yeah, institutions for sure, but also just space as itself, you know, and to put meaning into the certain spaces. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, spaces become meaningful when you put some meaning in it. So I guess this is another super cool creative activity when you just go explore, research your space, and you understand that something was happening around it. And of course, it's still a bit challenge, and probably it will be for school kids or for a school to go outside from a school. Yeah. So of course, the closer the institution initiative, I don't know, or just the space is closer to school, it's more accessible. So and there are so many ways how to do it. So and this program, Millennium Schools, it's a lot of freedom, and you can see how differently it could be used. Yeah, just going with sports literature, I don't know, history teachers, you know, around your school, I don't know, neighborhood and so on, and you learn a lot, making a map and then collaborating with tourism center and having this map for the tourist of your place, you know, and so on and so forth. And institutions, of course, and institutions are encouraged for a long-term partnership in creating new programs in formal education. So it means it's not just something extracurriculum, not just, you know, exceptional fest or whatever, which happening. The goal is to have it as a learning routine. So going outside school, for example, to go to learn art in museum, kind of the goal is it to be normal, natural. That you have your lesson not at school only, but also outside, and not only museum, of course. So it's like a. And I'm so happy that in Lithuania we have such a rich and such a high quality culture, actually. So I'm also here very much, how to say, energized by telling just look how much we have. So to make it accessible for kids, to make them have it as a routine, as a daily thing, you know, like to use it, talking in economical terms, like consume, yeah, consume culture in a way, which is so accessible, it's so good, and you just, and it still there are many possibilities to have it for free, which is also not something guaranteed, yeah. So, yeah.
But you mean there is also idea to somehow join the institutions, cultural institutions, with the school? So, let's say, for example, SODA joins one of the program, and artists could be invited to become educators.
Yeah, we talked with Danute, Danute Gambitskaite about it. So the thing is that it's coming from, now it's supported with this program, but actually it's very much initiated from school teachers or institutions. So it's just not something, if we talk about SODAs, yeah, it's not something that kids just coming, looking and leaving. It's that teachers are coming here with Danute and other artists. They're working on a program which is tested and so on. It's connected with formal education. It means teachers have a argumentation, motivation to do it. Yeah, they're testing it, they're looking how it works and so on, and then we reuse it or scale it or whatever word you use. Yeah, so it becomes part of a formal education that kids on I don't know 7th, 10th or whatever grade coming here to SODA. Yeah, as long as SODA exists, or then exists something else. So this is long-term strategical partnership. Which you know that during history lesson you come here, during art lesson you come here. Yeah, so that's the goal in Vilnius. But if you are somewhere else, you choose library, you choose I don't know culture center, and if there are no institutions, maybe you just choose some other space. You kind of make it meaningful for your class.
And you were also mentioning that you have the program for the teachers, and it's interesting how you work with them. What is the motivation, and how often do you engage with them? Are they coming for kind of one course, or is it kind of continuous program?
We have, I think, two different types. One is for the teachers who are teachers and do this high school, what subject it was? Yes, elective course. And there are 3 or 4 times to year they come together, and we my English. And we give them some tips, and they discuss how they do something, and that is like network. And the other is the people who want to learn, teachers or study teachers, and there we have one program, and they participate this, and then they have noticed, they do it. And of course they have skills how to do that subject, like room design, spatial design. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the spatial thinking is something that I think we in Lithuania don't recognize as a kind of skill you can also learn, and it's kind of also considered to be maybe in the architectural school you kind of get used to this, but really, can you share maybe even the backstory of how this spatial thinking as a core of your practice is now changing the Estonian education system? Are people using these? How they are using these tools in their educational activities? I mean, teachers and.
I go next Friday to the Rapla High School and do some clips, and then we need some pupils. And then I ask can we have there some pupils? And then the leader said, oh, we have on the November end, then will this yes.
Architecture elective course will start.
Yes, and there are 20 pupils, but because they haven't more space for them, but the pupils who wanted to go in this spot,
Elective course.
they were about 40 or 50. That young people very want to have this one, and that's why schools do this our course. And I think that is the time.
Like it's a right momentum, maybe
Yes.
like everybody's waking up and noticing how our streets are ugly and we want it to look more beautiful, and then we start to think like, okay, maybe children, they are where to start when we want to have like a change in the in our city's outlooks.
Yes, and also in Rakvere, small town, there is architect, town architect, and there will also this new high school, and there is this course, and there is also a lot of pupils who want, and this is nice that the town architect have time to go do this course. And I think this is small steps, but like water and rock, you do it, and then it's whole. and this the horse, it is 2012, 6 years ago, and now we have this result. Okay.
Wonderful. All right, I see that we are also running out of time, drop by drop, but it came to an end. So if anyone in the audience has a question or remark, it's time also to raise your hand. Okay, I see.
Hello. Hey. Thank you very much for the discussion and presentations. I have a question, especially for Estonians. You said it's a elective course, but is it accredited, or who can run it? Do you need to have a pedagogical education? Because it is an amazing thing, but how do you bring it to school? And is it like 2 hours a week, or is it 3 days in a row? So would love to hear more of a background structure of it. Thank you.
It's like it can be part of a formal curricula, and it's not mandatory course, but every school can offer like extra courses based on the interests of teachers or students. And so one course to lead formally is this architecture and living environment elective course by architecture school. And I think it's up to the teacher or like the household rules of the school, how they do this kind of courses. Sometimes they want to have it like a project week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they do it like really intensively during this time. But sometimes it runs, for example, in one school it starts in November and probably it will end then somewhere in May, and it runs throughout the school year. Yeah, and also one this course comes with a handbook, so it is divided to different lessons, and it's in order to it all runs smoothly. And and logically. And one time or like one session is 2 times 75 minutes, so it's longer than a regular school class. So they have to take this into account, so it can't be like we have it once in a week for 45 minutes. Maybe some do it like this, but it's meant to be like a more time at the moment.
And do you need to pass any, I don't know, legislation or check to be available, to be able to run that elective course? Like, who lets you do it? Is it the school? Is it municipality? Is it government?
It's the school, or like the teachers of the school who usually they have done the training in their teacher, like a part of their teacher training. They can choose to get more specialized in it's either in arts or is it even in architecture. And if they choose to get more specialized in architecture to be able to teach it in school, then they get this training by architecture school teachers, and then they have this check on their diplomas that they are for sure able to do it, and then they after that they have possibility to take part in the gatherings and be part of this teachers network that architecture school is holding up, or like organizing some events that those teachers come together and they can change their experiences or and maybe learn something more. And but I'm not 100% sure, if you haven't done the training, can you still teach this course?
Yes, because our
This course? Yeah. The handbook?
Yes. The handbook is so good.
And it's free for everyone to use. You don't have to actually register somewhere that you're using it now. So we don't have like a total overview how many courses are open each year. That's how it can come to as a surprise that she goes to a school and she hears that there are children that are really into architecture and they want to do those videos together with Piret. What else? Okay, I hope I covered it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think we can expand our discussion during the lunchtime. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. It was really inspiring. I think we need not only good handbooks of how to do things, but also feel empowered and be courage enough to really go outside or maybe work in a different settings and rediscover new rules, how we learn. So thanks for all the discussion panelists, and yeah.